All right, we are back on Get Up, and our next feature is called Talk to Me. It's football, and it begins in Green Bay. We got Coach LaFleur, we got Jordan Love. They got a lot to say. Talk to me.
I think there's like a narrative out there that for whatever reason that he wasn't as productive as the year before. Well, I mean, he missed significant time. He missed the better of 3 games. And then also, there was, let's be honest, I mean, when we talked about this, we did have a lot of drops last year.
I mean, what is a step back is what I'd ask, you know what I mean? It's all about the goals of the team at the end of the day. You know, I'd say we won more games than we did the year before. So that's why I asked you, what is a step back?
All right, so that's Jordan Love, and he has a supporter in our buddy Dan Orlovsky, who yesterday tweeted, anyone who says Jordan Love regressed last year doesn't look at quarterback play properly. Thanks. Have an awesome day. I'm dying to get Danny on here to talk about that, because here's what I thought I saw. We have Jeff Darlington, Dominique Foxworth, and Tim, my quarterback today. I'll start with you. And I will admit, I picked Jordan Love to be the MVP of the league before the season began. That was my predictions. I was expecting him to elevate to a level where he was at the very, very top of the league. So maybe my expectations were too high. And in fairness, he got hurt right at the beginning of the year, and maybe that was an impact all season long. But the one thing he continues to have in his game, at least Tim, based upon what I see, is the occasional head scratcher that is so startling, like decisions that he makes every now and again that are so bad that they genuinely give you pause. Like they make you concerned that this is stuff that does not get coached out of his game, because he's not a rookie anymore. You tell me, Tim, I defer to your expertise. Am I seeing that incorrectly? Because it sounds like Dan says I am.
No, I mean, listen, I think that, like, the 2 plays that we just showed, they're the plays where you're like, man, like that's awful. Like, and if he were to sit, you know, on the show, he'd be like, yeah, those were bad and I know better. You know, almost, you know, like we've seen young quarterbacks make, and you say, well, you just got to get them out of your system. So we definitely saw some of those. And I think it's fair to say when that happens, to say, like, okay, well, I don't feel like we see Josh Allen do that, or I don't feel like we see, you know, Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson do that. And Greeny, to your point, look, you're picking him as you know, an MVP candidate, and based on how he finished the year prior, I think a lot of people felt that way. I forget what the tear was. It was like 17 touchdowns and 1 pick in the back half of the season. I mean, it was an incredible run, and so you know, expectations changed. Do I think he is a worse quarterback in 2025 than he was in 2024 or 3? No, I don't. I think he's better. You know, will he have to, you know, show that he doesn't make the bonehead plays? Sure, he absolutely will. But I think he'll play better. I think some of the stuff that Matt LaFleur talked about in terms of, you know, injury, he was injured, and when he came back, he wasn't fully healthy, and the fact that they did have drops and injured receivers. Like, those things are true. So I think, you know, it's never just one thing, and it's never just, you know, one play that defines a quarterback. But look, I think you put it all together, I think he's an ascending and better player.
Well, and they did finally take a wide receiver in the first round for the first time in what felt like forever. Dominique, Jordan Love, go.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in the wording. Like, he didn't regress. He said, you said that he hasn't removed these plays from his game. Like, yeah, those plays are in his game. He still has room to get better, but has he gotten worse? No. As much as I'd like to disagree with Dan Orlovsky, he's right. I think that Jordan Love is as good last year as he was the year before, and, I mean, controlling for the injury and all that. But I do think you nailed it, Greeny, when you pointed out that all of our expectations, I think he was not as good as we expected him to be, but he's just as good as he was. I think we expected him to take another leap and to get into conversation with some of those names that we like to hear around the MVP conversation. He's not there yet, so he hasn't regressed, but he hasn't taken that leap.
And Jeff, maybe another piece of this, which is completely unfair to him because it has nothing to do with him, is the lineage that he is following in, because he is on the team that had Brett Favre, and then after Favre had Aaron Rodgers. And so now it is so easy for us to say, oh my goodness, look, they've got the next one in this line of guys who are going to be that good. And maybe, again, this may be more about what I and some others were expecting from him than it is about what he actually did.
expectations certainly are a big part of this. By the way, his passer rating was slightly higher this last season than the previous one, not to put that much into statistics, but I will also add this. We're talking about a player who really doesn't have that big of a body of work. You know, we look at CJ Stroud, his rookie year, and then his quote-unquote regression the year after that. He played historically well his rookie year. When we talk about Jordan Love, we have to remember he got paid essentially after what was his rookie year as the face of the franchise, and that does in fact heighten expectations. Jordan Love is very different when we evaluate him than any other quarterback across the league for that very reason. It is so rare for us to basically take a quarterback, put him on the field as a starter, and then at the end of that year, give him that monster extension. It changes everything for him. I think that we all need to kind of step back and say, allow him to create a body of work that is more in fairness, something that we can evaluate as that full sample size.
Tim, final word.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you just look at the division, and you know, the quarterbacks in the division, is he the best in the division? I think some people could sit there and argue that he is. Some people may take Jared Goff, but the reality is, look, he is to Jeff's point too, a young and inexperienced quarterback that is an ascending player. Like that is absolutely what he still is. So will there be mistakes? Yeah, there will be. Look, Josh Allen had a run of red zone interceptions. Patrick Mahomes had games where he was turning the football over. It happens to even the best. So, look, to me, this feels like a kind of a panic about, probably nothing.
Okay, and I hope that you are right, because I'm going to pick them to do a lot of great things again this season, and this time I'd like to be right. Let's get to the next one. Let's talk about a quarterback about whom there are no questions. Joe Burrow and the Bengals, another team looking to take a step forward. They missed the postseason last year, and you need to hear how Burrow addressed that yesterday. Joe, talk to me.
There's always more you can do. If I had played even better, then we wouldn't have been in that spot that we were in. So I'm just focused on trying to get better myself. And, I know everybody in the locker room, it feels the same way. So if I go out there and play better than I did last year, then it doesn't matter what goes on everywhere else.
Oh, my goodness. For Joe Burrow to even passively suggest that he was part of the reason the Bengals didn't reach their goals last season is actually three things all at once. It is him being a great teammate. It is a fascinating insight into the drive that makes him what he is. And it is as patently ridiculous an assessment of football as you will ever hear. Let me remind you of what happened. Cincinnati went 9-8 last year despite allowing 434 points. There were only three teams in the AFC that allowed more than that last year: Cleveland, Jacksonville, and Tennessee. Two of them allowed 435, so that's only one more point. All those teams were terrible. The Browns and Titans combined to win 6 games, and they finished with the first and second picks in the draft. Burrow had the Bengals in contention on the season's final day. Here are the big picture individual stats. Burrow had a QBR of 74.7. Very simply, that means his team was supposed to go 13-4. He led the league in passing yards. He threw 43 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, and he did that playing behind what was statistically the worst pass-blocking offensive line in the NFL. So those are the big numbers. But let's drill deeper. NFL teams that scored 33 or more points in a game last year, aside from the Bengals, went 79-7. The